All right, hi guys, welcome. I'm Garland Holmes, Assistant Manager at Grapenuts Wine in Wilson. Thank you for joining us. I've got with me this evening Elizabeth Hull, or Liz as she likes to be called, from Kellogg Selections. They're out of Charlotte, North Carolina. They have quite a neat and a wide variety of wines in their book. And tonight we're going to check out Prà Winery. They're in the north part of Italy, up in the Veneto. So think Verona. Both of these wines are grown, within 30, 40 miles of Verona, of the heart of Verona. So we've got a little presentation for you, just some neat facts and overview of the winery. What we're going to do is we're going to show you some facts about the winery, the winemaker himself, a little bit of history. We're going to go a little bit into the white wine, and then give everybody a moment actually to join in, and we can all kind of cheers. A nice little Friday afternoon cheers moment. And then after that, I'll mute everybody again, just to keep the volume level low, and then we'll go back and do the same thing for the red wine. So without further ado, Liz, I hand the floor over to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Garland. And it's nice to, let me see if I can see anyone. Oh, hi. Hi, people in Wilson, or I don't know where you are, but I'm not too far away. I'm in Tarboro tonight. Yep, so my name is Liz Hull, and I'm with Kellogg Selections. We have a fairly niche portfolio of winemakers, of wines. We actually specialize, I don't know if the company would actually say this, but I would say that our Italian portfolio is one that is pretty astounding, in that we have a lot of kind of under the radar Italian producers, as well as some of the more well-known. So the owners of Kellogg Selections, it has nothing to do with the cereal. It's Jeff Kellogg and his wife Stephanie, and they both met, actually they met in Charlotte, but they lived in San Francisco, they lived in New York. Jeff worked for Danny Meyer, who is a pretty well-renowned restaurateur. He owns Shake Shack. You might be familiar with that. It is in New York, but it's kind of a bigger chain thing these days, and some pretty high-end restaurants. So Jeff was the sommelier for Danny's Italian restaurant called Maialino. He selected all of the Italian wines for that restaurant. His specialty is Italian wines. So we were pretty excited to bring Prà wines into our book. So we are direct importing those ourselves. So that's kind of a pretty awesome thing to cut out the middleman, which makes the wines a lot more affordable than if we had, another person that was helping with the importation. So Prà, Garland, how much do you want me to get into? I know you have your PowerPoint. Do you want to go through that, or?
So I can go to the next slide and you can talk it through later, kind of thing.
Okay, all right, cool. So you'll see everything written here. Basically, Prà Winery was, it was actually held, the vines have been held in the family for centuries. They just have not made wine themselves and bottled it themselves. So the grapes were available for other people who were making wine. Like these days, if you were a winery, you can grow your own grapes and make your own wine, or you can buy your grapes and make your wine, or you can buy your grapes and have someone else make your wine. But in this particular operation, since 1981, Graziano Prà, who is the head of this winery, of Prà Winery, he has been growing the grapes and also making the wine. So the wines that we're tasting today, the Soave, Prà Winery is known for excellent Soave. And so by saying Soave, it's kind of like when you say, oh, I love a Côte de Rhône or I love a Burgundy. Like those are referring to regions, which I mean, maybe that's a little elementary for some of you, but just so you know that Soave is a region. And as Garland explained before, it is in the Veneto region of Italy. So that is northeastern Italy, actually near Venice and Verona. So they, that area, Soave is, in order for a wine to be categorized as a Soave, it has to be at least 70% of a certain grape variety, and this variety is Garganega. So it's kind of a mouthful, but it is a fun word to say. So the wines in Soave are all white, and 70% Garganega, if not more. So the Auto Classico that we are trying tonight, that is 100% Garganega. The vines there are around 30 to 60 years old for the Garganega. Let's see, so there is a little bit of lees aging. So when you age something on the lees, there's a little bit, you get a little bit more body, but this is still a very steely, clean, refreshing, beautiful Soave. The one thing about this wine that I mean, I guess the technique that Graziano Prà employs with all of his wines is that they are very elegant and well balanced, and those are two words that are like, what do you mean? Well, like with Soave in particular, Garganega, in the way that Soave is produced and the way it's made, it can often be very steely and very high acid, and very bracing. But this particular Garganega, because it does see a little bit of lees aging, which again kind of softens the wine, it's not as astringent as some, but nevertheless, it's an excellent seafood wine, grilled veggies, or even, you know, an aperitif if you're just hanging out with friends. Once we can all get back together, you know, it's a great one to bring out on a picnic. Just a really beautiful wine, lots of like white flowers, citrus zest, just a really beautiful wine. And let's see. So moving on to.
You want to talk about any of his, just quickly, about Pra's other white wines? Just glance on them.
Oh, yes.
So he's known for, he was like the guy that started aging Soave in barrel, and that's not something that was done shortly after the winery was purchased in the early 80s.
Yes. So again, like that's a part of you know, his winemaking style. So you know, that's one thing that he's known for with the white wines, is creating more balance by doing a little bit of barrel aging, as well as, you know, a little bit of time on the lees. So for example, the Monte Grande, which is one of the white wines that I know they have at Grapenuts, that is kind of like the premier Soave that Graziano produces. That does see a bit of barrel aging. In addition, it is, of course, it's 70% Garganega. I think it might be a little bit more Garganega, but it does have a little bit of another grape, Trebbiano, and that is also another grape that is allowed within the Soave viticultural region, appellation. So the combination of the two grapes, that kind of rounds out the body. It gives a little bit more fruit for the Monte Grande. In addition to, as Garland was saying, there is like barrel aging. And then there's a Staforte, which is also another Soave that that they make at Prà Winery, and that is that also is Garganega and Trebbiano. The ratios are, I believe that they're a little different between the Monte Grande and the Staforte, but essentially it goes from the Classico, which is the wine that we have on the screen tonight, which is fresh. As it says Classico, it's very classic, a little bit softer than other Soave Classicos. But then as you move up, the Staforte has a bit more body, and then the Monte Grande, by any other comparison, you wouldn't say that the Monte Grande is a full-bodied white wine, but it does have a bit more body, a little bit more roundness, a little bit more of a fruit quality. And of course, none of these wines are sweet. They are all lean and clean, bright, sunny, perfect summertime, refreshing white wines.
Sure. I'm going to steal the pulpit from you for a second.
Yes.
The Soaves from Prà, compared to some other Soaves that I've tried over the years, they are less like just mineral aluminum foil in your face steely.
Yes.
There's more finesse with these white wines than I've noticed with a lot of other Soaves. I was there 2 years ago and we tried a bunch of Soave when we were there. And for the most part, it was like drinking same stuff, different day, every other day. You had to either spend a decent amount of money before you found something that was drastically different, or you had to really go to like a tiny producer or somebody that knows really what they're doing. And that's what is going on here, is that, he's got 30 years under his belt and he's been doing this. And he was literally, I had to go pull up some maps for Soave DOC, because it's such a, like, I don't want to say overlooked, but it's not well detailed how cut out the region is itself. And so when going back and looking, they're mentioned multiple times in the World Wine Atlas. That's like everybody in the businesses like go to for when you have to figure out where in the hell something is. But anyways, I'm gonna unmute everybody so we can try the wine. If you guys have any questions, you're welcome to throw it at us. And we can say cheers. So everybody's unmuted at this point.
I've been sipping on it. It's delicious.
It is good.
I couldn't resist.
That's what we like to hear.
Yeah, it's really
Cheers,
good.
cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, friends.
So why isn't this sweet? So you said these wines aren't sweet. Why aren't they sweet?
Why? Because the grapes are the harvest happens like in October.
Mm-hmm.
It's not intended to be a dessert wine, so they don't allow the grapes to kind of hang on the vine. They don't do any like drying of the grapes for the Soave. Now they do, when we get to the red, we can talk about how they dry some of the Valpolicella grapes.
Okay.
But the longer that a grape sits on the vine, the longer that a grape dries, then that increases
The sweetness.
more of the sugars. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's they do make dessert wine. None of these are that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And there's also like different soil types. So like the soil that these white grapes, the Garganega grapes, grow in, it's volcanic soil.
Okay.
So that too kind of lends to like more of a steely quality, which again is another reason why Graziano Prà, works his magic in the winemaking in the cellar, because like Garland was saying, the Soave can tend to be, if it's Soave Classico, can tend to be very steely and very like just metallic, embracing.
Cool.
Sometimes it can be, like I was saying, it's same wine, different day, where you don't really notice the difference, and it's kind of like, you grow your wine, you put it in the bottle, and then that's it. And you don't think about what you're doing. It's a bottom dollar kind of thing. And a lot of the region in Soave does that. They keep a lot of, I think it's like over half of the grapes that are grown that are made into wine. They sell, they don't export. They don't have anybody that is planning on selling their wine, anybody to anyone other than the families that are like in the area. So you'll literally have families that come over with enormous jugs and fill them up and take them home, and that's their like white wine for the next month or their red wine for the next month. A lot of that happens in these smaller areas in Italy. So with that, I think I'm gonna go back and mute everybody again, and we're gonna after that we're gonna go into a little bit about the Valpolicella Prà Winery as soon as I get Liz unmuted here. Okay.
Okay.
And talk about the red. So I'm gonna switch back over to here.
So, so definitely this winery is known for their Soave. So they are known for their white wines. That's their claim to fame. And by the way, the entire winery, the Soave as well as the Valpolicella that you're about to try, they're all certified organic. So the I believe it was, yeah, the Soave Classico was those vines were certified in 2018. The Valpolicella has been certified. So these grapes, they're grown at a pretty high elevation in Valpolicella. So again, like, you know, same-ish region as Soave, but so it's a red grape growing region, and also like Soave, it has grape varieties that are allowed within the DOC, which is the controlling organization for wine production. Like in France, you have an AOC. It's just basically allowing like how wine can be made and what grapes can be put into said wine. So within Valpolicella, the grapes can be a lot of these kind of esoteric varieties see as a single variety wine, like you would Merlot or like Cab Sav. The grapes allowed in Valpolicella are Corvina, Corvinone, Rondinella, Osoleta, and then an easy one, Veronese, because it's near Verona. But it's, those are all of the grapes that are allowed within this wine. So typically, just like Soave, especially Soave Classico, is considered to be kind of like, very bracing, very, kind of aluminum metallic wine. The Valpolicella tends to be a bit more kind of, let's see, not voluptuous, but a little bit more like muscular and kind of ripe. But Graziano Prà also kind of works as magic in the cellar and ensures balance. So these grapes, they are the vines from which they source. They were planted in 2001. So 19 years on these grapevines. The wine, I guess all of these notes are. I'm also reading what you've written. So the wine, once the grapes are picked, they hang out and dry for 20 days. So that's not as long as some of the other wineries who would, dry their grapes a bit longer, and thus creating more residual sugar in the wine. And not just sugar, but like concentrated, intense flavor. So you'll notice that when you drink this wine, it's bright and fresh. There's a lot of like red berry fruit, maybe think of like cranberries. And there is like a little bit of spice for me. The one weird tasting note that I get is a little bit of like slightly toasted like pizza crust, which may or may not have to do with the small amount of French oak that this wine is aged in. So again, as you know, as anything can add flavor to the wine from the soil to the region, the winemaking process is kind of the last in that equation. So when you're aging wine, you know, if you age with American oak, you're going to have a bit more of that kind of oaky profile that a lot of people think of with Chardonnay. French oak is a little bit of a tighter grain, so you don't get as much of that oakiness imparted. As well, usually neutral barrels are used, so that when you say neutral, it means previously used barrels. So so you don't get as much of like an oaky flavor, but I do get like a little bit of a toastiness, which I think is quite nice on such a, you know, light-bodied red. Let me see what else. This wine also undergoes malolactic fermentation. When you hear that word, I know it's like a big word, but like malolactic fermentation, if you just hone in on the lactic part, lactic, you know, that's milk. So it has really nothing to do with milk except for the molecular structure. It softens a wine. So a wine, when it goes through malolactic fermentation, it can make it like ever so slightly softer, even perhaps creamy tasting. So this wine is also softened. It does see a little bit of, you know, that subtle French oak inflection, but yet it's still super fresh and bright. Soft tannins. It's a really great wine when chilled. So it's perfect for summer. Yeah. I'm sure I left a lot of stuff out because I just rambled.
You didn't leave anything out.
Okay.
you want to briefly, or I can do it if you want. So this is Prà's base level, entry level red wine. This is their Valpolicella red, and as Liz was saying, it sees 20 days of drying, which is a very short time. There's also a method that they utilize, especially in Valpolicella, for Amarones and for Repassos as like an entry level to Amarone. And so what they're doing is they're taking the grapes, they're drying them out, they're pressing, and then they're racking the grapes, getting all the juice out, you know, returning whatever to their heart's content. But what they're doing is called the passamento, or a passamento technique, which involves running the wine after it ferments back over the skins and everything else that was used originally during fermentation. So it's a neat way to like invoke like a stronger, more intense. A lot of the times in Valpolicella, you'll get this like raisiny flavor the more they utilize the Ripasso technique. It's like a sweeter, higher alcohol, like that's what your stereotypical Amarone is going to taste like, and his are totally different. Given that the red grapes are planted on that limestone, it's like a completely different, unique style of Amarone or Ripasso, and you can even taste it in just the regular Valpolicella.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of a critical component, is like when you taste Amarone, which for all of you out there, like Amarone can typically be like 16% ABV plus, like 16 would be on the low end. So it's a higher alcohol, you know, it has a bit, you know, a lot more residual sugar. But with the Prà Amarone, you can taste that minerality, that there's enough limestone in the soil that it, you know, it just it's fairly balanced, even though it's a big, voluptuous, beautiful wine. And I did see that someone had a question about what this wine would go with as far as like food pairings. And I think that for sure, like, you know, the first thing that comes to mind for me is like grilled vegetables. Barbecue, it would go perfectly with pork barbecue, would go really well, you know, with, you know, if you're grilling out burgers as well, but also pizza and like kind of like lighter Italian fare, pizza, pasta with red sauce, you know, I mean, it's pretty malleable. I don't know that I would necessarily put it, with anything with a lot of spice, but it's, you know, because you can chill it as well, and the tannins aren't too aggressive, like they're pretty soft tannins. It makes it a little bit easier to play around with. Also, it'd be excellent with a cheese plate. I mean, it's a pretty malleable wine.
Yeah, totally speaks for itself.
Yeah,
it's an easy entry level to, if you're interested in Northern Italian reds. This is like a great example of something that you can try to kind of get your foot in the door.
yeah. And it has a label because there's a unicorn on it, so.
And that helps in any situation. So I'm gonna unmute everybody. We're pretty much done here. If everybody wants to ask any questions, they're welcome to. Anyone has the floor if they want it.
Do you know why the unicorn? Is there a special reason why the unicorn's on the bottle?
Just because it's very special.
I mean, I like unicorns.
Yeah, there's I do know that like with the Otto, the Suave, Otto is the family dog. So
oh, that's sweet.
Yeah. So it's not, you know, it's not super there's not a whole lot of like, again, like the family had owned the vineyard, but hadn't really made wine since, you know, when Prà began in 1981. So there's not like a huge family crest, but yeah, because it's a great wine. That's why there's a unicorn.
So the Ripasso has the same label but with a red coloring, and then the Amarone has a horse-drawn carriage on it.
Yeah.
Anybody see that?
Oh, yeah. Now that's the top wine right there, Garland. The one in
top.
The top.
Yes, this is their Amarone.
So it's like, I mean, they're all excellent wines. It's just, you know, the Amarone is a lot more labor intensive. It takes longer. It requires, I mean, because the grapes are dried, it requires more grapes.
Correct. So,
you know,
just not to interrupt you, but so imagine like a full grape that you would just buy at the grocery store, not Vitis vinifera, but just imagine a full grape and then turn that into a raisin and then press that and make juice out of it. And that's what you have to use to make the Amarone. The Amarone is completely dried out. You're making wine out of raisins is essentially what's happening. And so your yield is much lower per hectare in your vineyard when you make Amarone. So obviously, you know, the price is going up, but you're making a wine that is much more intense in both like body, alcohol, and sugar content. It's kind of crazy. It's probably one of my favorite Italian wines, if not one of my favorite red wines in general.
Yeah, it's delicious.
Awesome.
I'd like to try that. Where do you all have that in the store?
I wish. Hey Liz, is that out of stock?
Let's see. We can get some back in. That was definitely, you know, it's also a smaller production because you can't really make that many unless you decide to go out and get more vines. But it, you know, within these wine growing regions, it's not so much like California where like you can just say, oh, well, I'll go and get some Chardonnay from someone, you know, in another county, or like there's all of this land. Like it's a pretty small place. So small production, labor intensive, you're making wine from raisins. So yeah, we never really got a ton of it, but when we get more back in, rest assured Grapenuts will have it in the back.
I know
Do
where
you
I can
guys
get a
have
bottle.
any of the Ripasso in stock?
Yes, we do. We have a little bit of the Ripasso. Yep.
Yeah. So I've had the Ripasso too, and that's the in between. That's in between the regular Valpolicella Red and the Amarone. So this is just like a one time or maybe two times. It depends on the winemaker's decision. So you just pass the juice back over after fermentation. You don't let it sit like you do for an Amarone kind of thing. That's your in between between the Valpolicella Red and the Amarone.
So we're picking up a lot of green pepper. Is anybody else, is that kind of the spicy?
I would say any herb is, or green pepper. I could see that. But any herb, thyme. Liz, what do you get?
I mean, I feel like the tannins are pretty soft, and the fruit that comes through is like, because it's something like cranberry. You know, you get tart, you get a little bit of tannin, you get. I mean, I would say as far as like the green pepper component, I would say sure, yeah. In addition to like just like earthiness, what they call like, you know, in French it's garrigue, and that's kind of like a quality that is like when you say it's garrigue, it's like, I don't know, it's like a potpourri of green herbs, but like definitely sage and thyme are two that kind of combine with this.
That's a pretty bird.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, Roy hears the birds.
I bet she does.
Oh,
No, don't get her keyed up.
All right, guys. Does anybody else have any other questions?
Speak.
Now we're gonna wrap it up here.
Speak.
Cheers.
I take your silence as
Cheers. Cheers
Yeah,
to
cheers.
all.
Cheers.
Cheers to you, Garland.
thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you,
Have a good
Madison.
weekend.
She's gone.
Happy Mother's Day, everybody.
And to you. Here she comes.
Hi, Katie. You want to say goodbye?
Liz, you're welcome to depart. I think there's going to be
All right.
a local get together at this point.
Like, are you having fun party without me? Okay, y'all. Well, thank you so much. Keep enjoying those lovely Italian wines. And remember, it's organic, you know, it's good for you. We all need to keep our health. So yeah, cheers, y'all.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Waddle.
Who has birds in their house?
Make